My sister Emma called me a failure at our mother's birthday dinner, right before her bank manager walked over to our table and said the words that would change everything. Ms. Rodriguez, I didn't expect to see our biggest private investor dining here tonight. The silence that followed revealed 28 years of family assumptions that were about to crumble completely. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I am Victoria Rodriguez, and for most of my adult life, my family believed I was the disappointment who never quite measured up to their expectations. While my sister Emma graduated with honors from business school and landed prestigious positions at consulting firms, I dropped out of college after 2 years to pursue what they called risky ventures in technology investments. While my brother Miguel built his law practice and bought his dream house in the suburbs, I lived modestly in a small apartment and drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. While my parents proudly discussed their successful children at social gatherings, they would quietly change the subject when asked about my career path. The truth was far more complex than their surface-level observations suggested, but I had learned early that explaining my unconventional approach to building wealth only generated skepticism and unsolicited advice about pursuing more traditional career security. My family valued visible success markers, prestigious job titles, expensive cars, large homes, and impressive social status. My approach to financial growth through strategic technology investments and startup acquisitions operated in a realm that seemed abstract and risky to their conventional understanding of professional achievement. The misconceptions about my financial situation had developed gradually over nearly a decade of family interactions, where I consistently downplayed my investment success while quietly supporting their major life transition. When Emma needed capital to start her consulting practice, I provided a substantial loan that she assumed came from my modest savings rather than my investment portfolio return. When Miguel faced unexpected legal challenges that threatened his practice, I covered his defense costs through what I described as freelance work earnings, rather than revealing the actual source of my available capital. My parents had struggled financially throughout my childhood, working multiple jobs to provide basic necessities, while dreaming of the financial security that seemed perpetually beyond their reach. Their emphasis on traditional career paths reflected their genuine concern about economic stability and their desire for their children to achieve the professional recognition that had eluded them. My decision to pursue investment opportunities instead of conventional employment appeared to validate their fears about financial irresponsibility and career instability. The family dynamic had crystallized around their perception of Emma as the responsible high achiever, Miguel as the determined professional building his practice, and me as the well-meaning but misguided sister who refused to embrace realistic career expectations. This narrative had become so entrenched that they interpreted every aspect of my lifestyle through the lens of assumed financial struggle and professional underachievement. My apartment was modest because I prioritized investment capital over housing expenses, but they viewed it as evidence of limited earning capacity. My older car was reliable and paid off, allowing me to allocate more resources toward investment opportunities, but they saw it as confirmation of my inability to afford better transportation. My preference for casual clothing and minimal spending on luxury items reflected my focus on building long-term wealth rather than displaying short-term affluence, but they interpreted these choices as indicators of financial constraint. The pattern had become self-reinforcing over the years as I found it increasingly difficult to correct their assumptions without appearing defensive or boastful about my actual financial position. Explaining that I could afford a luxury car but chose to invest that money in emerging technology companies seemed pretentious when they were genuinely concerned about my basic financial security. Describing my investment returns when they worried about my career prospects felt like dismissing their legitimate concerns about professional stability. More significantly, I had discovered that my family's willingness to accept financial assistance increased dramatically when they believed I was making personal sacrifices to help them rather than simply reallocating investment profit. Emma accepted my business loan more readily when she thought I was depleting my savings to support her entrepreneurial dreams. Miguel felt comfortable accepting legal fee assistance when he believed I was working extra freelance projects to help him through his professional crisis. The emotional complexity of these interactions had taught me that family relationships often depend more on perceived shared struggle than on actual financial capability. My relatives seemed more comfortable accepting help from someone they viewed as financially stretched than from someone they might perceive as having abundant resources. This dynamic had gradually shaped my approach to family financial assistance, where I consistently understated my actual investment success to maintain the emotional bonds that might be complicated by wealth disparity. The technology sector investments that formed the foundation of my financial growth had begun during my brief college experience with computer science courses that introduced me to emerging software development companies. While my classmates focused on securing internships at established corporations, I became fascinated by startup companies that were developing innovative solutions with potentially transformative market applications. My early investments were modest amounts that I could afford to lose, but several of these companies experienced substantial growth that generated returns far exceeding my initial expectations. The success of my early technology investments had provided capital for increasingly sophisticated investment strategies, including venture capital participation, private equity opportunities, and strategic acquisitions of promising startups before they achieved mainstream market recognition. My investment approach focused on identifying companies with innovative technology solutions that addressed significant market needs, particularly in artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology sectors that were positioned for substantial long-term growth. The financial returns from these investments had exceeded my most optimistic projections, creating wealth accumulation that far surpassed what traditional employment could have provided even in high-paying professional positions. However, the nature of investment income meant that my financial success was largely invisible to casual observation, since my wealth existed primarily in equity positions and investment accounts rather than in conspicuous consumption or luxury lifestyle display. My family's inability to recognize my financial success reflected broader societal assumptions about wealth accumulation and professional achievement. They equated financial success with visible spending patterns and traditional career advancement, making it difficult for them to comprehend that substantial wealth could be accumulated through investment strategies that did not conform to conventional employment models. The irony of their misconceptions became particularly apparent during family gatherings, where they would express concern about my financial future while simultaneously benefiting from financial assistance that I provided through carefully structured loans and gifts. Emma's consulting practice had been launched with my capital. Miguel's legal practice had survived his crisis through my financial support. My parents' mortgage had been quietly paid off through what I described as good investment returns, without specifying the actual magnitude of my portfolio performance. These financial contributions had been structured to appear modest and achievable rather than revealing the true scope of my investment success. I wanted to provide meaningful assistance without creating family dynamics where my wealth became the central focus of our relationships or where my relatives felt obligated to modify their behavior based on financial consideration. The morning that would eventually lead to the revelation at my mother's birthday dinner began with a routine review of my investment portfolio performance. The quarterly statements from my primary investment firm showed continued substantial growth across all major holdings, with total portfolio value now exceeding 8 figures. The artificial intelligence company that I had invested in during its early development phase had recently completed a successful public offering that multiplied my initial investment by over 2,000%. The renewable energy startup that I had supported during its research and development stage was now being acquired by a major corporation for a valuation that would generate returns exceeding $10 million on my original investment. These investment successes represented the culmination of nearly 15 years of strategic technology sector investing, but they remained completely invisible to my family members, who continued to view my career path as evidence of impractical decision-making and financial instability. The disconnect between their perceptions and my actual financial position had become so pronounced that I wondered whether revealing the truth might damage relationships that had been built on their assumption of my relative financial vulnerability. The decision to maintain this facade had become increasingly challenging as my investment success generated opportunities for more visible wealth display, including offers to serve on corporate boards, invitations to exclusive investment conferences, and recognition from financial publications that featured successful technology sector investors. However, accepting these visible leadership roles would inevitably expose my actual financial position to family members who were not prepared for such dramatic revelation about my professional achievement. The emotional weight of maintaining this deception had grown heavier as my family's expressions of concern about my financial future became more frequent and more specific. Emma regularly suggested career opportunities that she believed might provide better financial security. Miguel offered professional connections that could help me establish more traditional income sources. My parents expressed worry about my retirement planning and suggested that I consider more stable employment options before I became too old to qualify for corporate positions. Their genuine concern for my welfare made their misconceptions particularly difficult to address directly, since correcting their assumptions would require explaining not only my current financial position but also the years of deception that had allowed these misconceptions to develop and persist. The revelation would necessarily include acknowledgement that I had been providing financial assistance while allowing them to believe that such assistance represented personal sacrifice rather than routine allocation of investment return. The complexity of this situation had reached a critical point where continued deception seemed both emotionally unsustainable and potentially damaging to family relationships that I valued deeply. However, the prospect of revealing my actual financial success also carried risks of fundamentally altering family dynamics in ways that might be equally problematic for maintaining close personal connection. The catalyst for change would arrive unexpectedly during what should have been a routine family celebration, when circumstances beyond my control would force a revelation that I had been postponing for years. The moment would demonstrate that secrets about financial success, regardless of the motivations for maintaining them, eventually become unsustainable when they conflict too dramatically with observable reality. My story represents the challenges faced by individuals whose unconventional approaches to wealth building generate success that remains invisible to traditional measures of professional achievement, and the emotional complexity of maintaining family relationships when significant wealth disparities exist alongside genuine mutual affection and concern. The foundation had been established for a revelation that would permanently alter my family's understanding of my professional achievements and force a complete re-evaluation of assumptions that had shaped our relationships for nearly 3 decades. The truth about my financial success was about to emerge in the most unexpected and dramatic circumstances possible. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The quarterly family dinner at my parents' house in Riverside had become a ritual of unspoken concerns and carefully managed conversations about my professional direction. These gatherings followed a predictable pattern where Emma would share updates about her expanding consulting client base, Miguel would discuss his latest legal victories, and my parents would beam with pride about their successful children before the conversation would inevitably turn to gentle inquiries about my own career progress. These discussions had evolved into a delicate choreography where family members expressed concern about my financial stability, while I provided vague reassurances about my investment activities, without revealing the actual magnitude of my portfolio performance. The emotional complexity of these interactions had deepened over the years as my investment success continued to grow while my family's misconceptions about my financial situation became increasingly entrenched. The most recent quarterly dinner had occurred just 3 weeks before my mother's birthday celebration, and the conversation had followed the familiar trajectory of supportive concern masked as casual inquiry. Emma had mentioned several entry-level positions at established corporations that might provide more reliable income than my current investment activities. Miguel had offered to introduce me to colleagues who might need basic administrative support for their practices. My parents had suggested that I consider pursuing professional certification programs that could qualify me for more traditional employment opportunities. Their suggestions reflected genuine love and concern for my welfare, but they also demonstrated the profound disconnect between their perceptions of my financial situation and the reality of my investment portfolio performance. Emma's entry-level position recommendations would have provided annual salaries that represented less than my typical monthly investment returns. Miguel's administrative support opportunities would have generated hourly wages that I could exceed through passive dividend income alone. My parents' certification program suggestions addressed career development needs that had become irrelevant given my current financial independence. The challenge of responding to these well-intentioned recommendations without revealing my actual financial position had become increasingly complex as my investment success generated opportunities that extended far beyond basic financial security. The artificial intelligence company that had provided my most substantial returns was now offering board positions to major investors, which would have provided both significant additional compensation and public recognition of my investment expertise. The renewable energy consortium that I had joined during its formation phase was requesting strategic input from founding investors about expansion opportunities that could potentially multiply current returns. These opportunities represented validation of my investment strategies and recognition of my expertise within professional circles that specialized in technology sector development. However, accepting visible leadership roles would necessarily expose my financial success to family members who remained convinced that my career choices demonstrated poor judgment and unrealistic expectations about wealth accumulation through non-traditional means. The documentation of my investment performance had become increasingly sophisticated as portfolio values grew and diversification strategies became more complex. My primary investment advisor now provided quarterly reports that detailed performance across multiple asset classes, including venture capital positions, private equity holdings, real estate investment trusts, and international technology development funds. The most recent quarterly summary had shown total portfolio appreciation of 18% over the previous 12 months, with several individual holdings generating returns that exceeded 100% annually. These performance metrics placed my investment results within the top 5% of individual investors nationwide, according to industry benchmarking studies that compared portfolio performance across various investment strategies and market sectors. The success of my technology-focused approach had attracted attention from institutional investors who were seeking to understand how individual investors could consistently identify promising startups before they achieved mainstream market recognition. The irony of this external professional recognition occurring simultaneously with continued family skepticism about my career choices had created emotional tension that I struggled to manage effectively. Industry publications had featured my investment approach in articles about successful technology sector investing, but I could not share these achievements with family members without revealing the financial success that I had been concealing for years. The psychological impact of maintaining this deception had intensified as the disparity between perception and reality became more pronounced. During family gatherings, I would listen to discussions about financial planning and career development, while possessing investment knowledge and financial resources that far exceeded anything being discussed. Emma would share strategies for building her consulting practice, while I sat quietly despite having capital resources that could fund her business expansion plans without affecting my overall financial position. Miguel would express concerns about market volatility affecting his retirement planning, while I maintained investment positions that could weather significant market downturns without compromising my long-term financial security. My parents would worry about healthcare costs and aging-related expenses, while I possessed resources that could address any conceivable medical or care-related needs that might arise during their retirement years. The emotional weight of possessing solutions to problems that my family members discussed as significant challenges had become particularly difficult to manage, I could resolve Emma's business development concerns through strategic investment in her consulting practice. I could eliminate Miguel's retirement planning anxiety through trust fund establishment that would provide guaranteed income regardless of market performance. I could address my parents' healthcare concerns through comprehensive insurance policies and medical care funding that would ensure access to the highest quality treatment option. However, providing these solutions would require revealing the financial resources that made such assistance possible, which would necessarily expose years of deception about my actual career success and investment performance. The revelation would force acknowledgement that I had allowed family members to worry about financial challenges that I could easily address, and that I had accepted their concern about my financial future while possessing resources that exceeded their most optimistic projections for their own retirement security. The complexity of this situation had been further complicated by my family's increasing frequency of financial assistance requests that they framed as borrowing opportunities rather than direct gifts. Emma had requested short-term loans for business equipment purchases that she planned to repay through increased client revenues. Miguel had asked for temporary financial support during periods when legal practice income fluctuated due to case timing and client payment schedule. My parents had accepted assistance with home maintenance expenses that they described as loans to be repaid when their retirement income stabilized. These financial assistance requests had been fulfilled immediately and without expectation of repayment, but I had structured them to appear as modest loans between family members rather than routine allocation of investment returns that represented minimal impact on my overall financial position. Emma believed that her equipment loans represented significant personal sacrifice on my part to support her business development. Miguel assumed that his practice support came from my freelance earnings rather than passive investment income. My parents viewed home maintenance assistance as generous help from a daughter who was making personal financial sacrifices to support their needs. The emotional satisfaction of providing meaningful assistance to family members had been complicated by their gratitude for help that they believed represented personal hardship for me. Emma expressed appreciation for my willingness to deplete my savings to support her business growth. Miguel thanked me for working additional freelance projects to help him through temporary practice challenges. My parents regularly mentioned their appreciation for my generosity despite my own limited financial resources. Their gratitude reflected genuine appreciation for family support, but it was based on assumptions about my financial situation that became increasingly inaccurate as my investment portfolio continued to generate substantial returns. The assistance that they viewed as significant personal sacrifice represented routine financial transactions that had minimal impact on my overall wealth accumulation or lifestyle choices. The technological infrastructure that supported my investment activities had become increasingly sophisticated as portfolio complexity required professional-grade analysis and management tools. My home office now included multiple monitor displays for real-time market tracking, specialized software for portfolio analysis and performance measurement, and direct communication systems with investment advisors and fund managers who provided strategic guidance about emerging opportunities. This investment management infrastructure would have appeared inconsistent with my family's assumptions about my financial situation, which was why I maintained it in my apartment rather than in shared family spaces where the equipment might generate questions about the scope of my investment activity. The contrast between my actual investment operations and my family's perception of my financial capabilities had become so pronounced that concealing the reality required careful management of information and deliberate limitation of family access to my living space. The professional relationships that had developed through my investment activities represented another aspect of my success that remained invisible to family members who continued to express concern about my career development and professional networking. My investment advisor worked exclusively with high-net-worth clients and provided services that included strategic tax planning, estate management, and international investment coordination. The venture capital firms that included me in their investor groups provided access to pre-market investment opportunities that were typically reserved for institutional investors and accredited individuals with substantial capital resources. These professional relationships had generated opportunities for board positions, advisory roles, and strategic partnerships that would have provided both substantial compensation and public recognition of my investment expertise. However, accepting visible leadership positions would necessarily expose my financial success to family members who were not prepared for such dramatic revelation about my professional achievements and investment portfolio performance. The documentation of my investment success had created a comprehensive record of strategic decisions and performance results that demonstrated the effectiveness of my technology-focused approach to wealth building. The artificial intelligence investments that had generated my highest returns were now being studied by institutional investors who wanted to understand how individual investors could identify promising opportunities before they achieved mainstream market recognition. The renewable energy positions that had provided consistent growth were being featured in industry publications as examples of successful early-stage technology investing. This external validation of my investment strategies provided professional satisfaction and industry recognition that I could not share with family members without revealing the financial success that I had been concealing. The disconnect between public acknowledgement of my investment expertise and family assumptions about my career failures had created psychological tension that required careful emotional management to maintain family relationships while pursuing continued investment growth and professional development. The foundation had been established for increasingly complex family dynamics as my investment success continued to grow, while my family's misconceptions about my financial situation became more deeply entrenched. The pattern of providing financial assistance while concealing its source had created relationships based on assumptions that were becoming increasingly difficult to maintain as the disparity between perception and reality reached unsustainable levels. The notification from Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly performance reports from my technology investment portfolio. The email requested a meeting to discuss exclusive investment opportunities that were being extended to their most significant private clients, specifically those with portfolios exceeding $25 million in managed assets. The invitation represented recognition of my financial standing within the upper tier of individual investors, yet I could not share this professional acknowledgement with family members who continued to express concern about my basic economic security. The contrast between external financial recognition and family perceptions had reached a point where maintaining the deception required increasingly sophisticated management of information and careful compartmentalization of my professional activity. The investment management firms that competed for my business provided services and opportunities that were typically reserved for institutional clients and ultra-high net worth individuals. While my family remained convinced that I struggled to maintain basic financial stability through inconsistent freelance work and modest investment returns, the Goldman Sachs meeting had been scheduled for the following week at their Beverly Hills private client office, where I would join a select group of investors for presentations about emerging market opportunities in biotechnology and sustainable energy sector. The invitation specified that attendance was limited to clients with demonstrated expertise in early-stage technology investing and substantial capital available for high-risk, high-reward opportunities that could generate exceptional returns over extended time horizons. These exclusive investment opportunities represented the type of professional recognition and financial access that validated my decision to pursue non-traditional wealth-building strategies rather than conventional employment paths that my family continued to recommend. The biotechnology investments being presented had the potential to generate returns that could multiply my current portfolio value within 5 years, while the sustainable energy opportunities aligned with my long-term conviction that environmental technology would drive the next major wave of economic growth. The irony of receiving invitations to exclusive investment opportunities
while my family worried about my retirement planning, had become a source of internal conflict that I struggled to resolve without fundamental changes to our relationship dynamic. Emma regularly suggested that I consider opening a basic retirement account and contributing modest amounts toward long-term financial security. Miguel recommended consultation with financial advisors who could help me develop realistic savings goals based on my limited income. My parents expressed concern that I was not preparing adequately for future financial needs that would become more pressing as I aged.
Their financial planning recommendations reflected genuine concern for my welfare, but they addressed problems that had been resolved years earlier through investment strategies that had exceeded my most optimistic projections for wealth accumulation. Emma's retirement account suggestions would have provided annual contribution limits that represented less than my typical monthly passive income from dividend distributions. Miguel's financial advisor recommendations would have connected me with professionals who managed portfolios smaller than my quarterly investment gains. My parents' savings goal discussions focused on accumulating amounts that I could generate through investment returns within weeks, rather than years. The disconnect between their recommendations and my actual financial position had created situations where I found myself receiving financial advice about basic wealth-building strategies while simultaneously evaluating investment opportunities that required millions of dollars in available capital. During recent family conversations, Emma had explained the importance of compound interest for long-term wealth accumulation. While I maintained positions in venture capital funds that were generating compound returns at rates that would have seemed impossible to traditional investment approaches, Miguel had shared articles about the benefits of diversified portfolio construction while I managed investment positions across 17 different asset classes, spanning multiple international markets and currency systems. My parents had discussed the importance of emergency fund establishment while I maintained liquid capital reserves that exceeded most people's lifetime earnings potential through traditional employment paths. The psychological burden of receiving well-intentioned financial guidance while possessing resources that rendered such advice unnecessary had intensified as my investment success continued to accelerate, and my family's misconceptions became more deeply entrenched. The artificial intelligence companies that formed the core of my technology portfolio had achieved market valuations that multiplied my original investments by factors that seemed almost fictional when compared to conventional investment return expectations. The blockchain infrastructure investments that I had pursued during the early development phase of cryptocurrency technology had generated returns that established my financial independence regardless of future investment performance. The renewable energy portfolio that I had constructed through strategic partnerships with emerging technology companies was now providing passive income streams that exceeded the annual salaries of most corporate executives in traditional industry. These investment successes had been achieved through strategic analysis and calculated risk-taking that demonstrated capabilities and expertise that my family had never recognized or acknowledged. The technology sector knowledge that enabled my investment selections had been developed through years of intensive research and professional development that occurred outside traditional academic or corporate training programs. The market analysis skills that guided my portfolio construction had been refined through practical experience and continuous learning that extended far beyond conventional financial education approaches. The professional recognition of my investment expertise had begun attracting opportunities for board positions and advisory roles with companies that valued my demonstrated ability to identify promising technologies before they achieved mainstream market adoption. The venture capital firms that included me in their investor groups recognized my track record of successful early-stage investments and my capacity to provide strategic guidance to startup companies navigating complex development challenges. These professional opportunities represented validation of my non-traditional career path and confirmation that wealth building through strategic technology investing could provide both financial success and meaningful professional engagement. However, accepting visible leadership roles would necessarily expose my investment expertise and financial resources to family members who remained convinced that my career choices demonstrated poor judgment and unrealistic expectations about economic achievement. The documentation of my investment performance had become increasingly comprehensive as regulatory requirements and tax planning considerations demanded detailed record-keeping about portfolio transactions and performance attribution. The quarterly reports from my investment management team now included analysis of risk-adjusted returns, sector allocation strategies, and comparative performance metrics that demonstrated my portfolio's outperformance relative to institutional benchmarks and market indices. The most recent performance analysis had shown that my technology-focused investment approach had generated average annual returns of 43% over the previous 7 years, compared to market average returns of approximately 11% during the same period. This performance differential had resulted in wealth accumulation that exceeded what traditional investment strategies could have achieved even with substantially larger initial capital amounts and longer time horizons. The mathematical reality of compound returns at these performance levels had created exponential wealth growth that transformed modest initial investments into substantial financial resources within relatively short time periods. The artificial intelligence investment that had begun with a $50,000 commitment during the company's seed funding round was now valued at over $12 million following successful product development and market expansion. The renewable energy consortium that I had joined with an initial investment of $75,000 was now generating annual distributions that exceeded $2 million while maintaining principal value that continued to appreciate as market demand for sustainable technology increased. These investment outcomes had established financial security that extended far beyond personal needs and created opportunities for strategic philanthropy and family assistance that could address virtually any conceivable financial challenge that might arise. However, the structure of family relationships had been built around assumptions about my financial limitations that would be fundamentally disrupted by revelation of my actual investment success and current wealth position. The complexity of managing family financial assistance while concealing its source had required increasingly sophisticated approaches to providing support without revealing the minimal impact that such assistance had on my overall financial position. Emma's business development loans had been structured as personal sacrifices that required careful budgeting and temporary lifestyle adjustments, rather than routine allocation of investment returns that represented insignificant percentages of monthly portfolio appreciation. Miguel's practice support during challenging periods had been presented as emergency assistance that required deferring my own financial goals rather than straightforward transfers from liquid capital reserves that were maintained specifically for unexpected opportunities and family needs. My parents' home maintenance assistance had been characterized as generous help that stretched my personal resources rather than minor expenses that could be covered through passive income without affecting my investment activities or lifestyle choices. The emotional complexity of providing financial assistance while maintaining deception about its source had created relationships where family members expressed gratitude for sacrifices that existed only in their perception rather than in financial reality. Emma regularly acknowledged my willingness to compromise my own financial security to support her business growth. Miguel thanked me for working additional projects to help him through temporary practice difficulties. My parents frequently mentioned their appreciation for my generosity despite my limited economic resources. Their expressions of gratitude reflected genuine family affection and mutual support, but they were based on assumptions about my financial situation that had become increasingly devoid from reality as my investment portfolio continued to generate substantial returns, and my wealth accumulation accelerated beyond anything they could have imagined possible through my chosen career path. The upcoming Goldman Sachs meeting represented another milestone in my financial development, would necessarily remain hidden from family members who continued to view my investment activities as evidence of impractical career choices rather than strategic wealth building that had achieved exceptional success. The exclusive investment opportunities being presented would require capital commitments that exceeded most people's lifetime earnings, while my family remained convinced that I struggled to maintain basic economic stability. The foundation had been established for increasingly complex management of professional success and family relationships, as external recognition of my investment expertise continued to grow, while family misconceptions about my financial situation became more deeply embedded in our relationship dynamic. The pattern of concealing achievement while providing assistance had created unsustainable tension between reality and perception that would ultimately require resolution through dramatic revelation of my actual financial position and investment success. The Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management Conference exceeded my expectations for both investment opportunity quality and professional networking potential. The Beverly Hills facility hosted 43 of their most significant private clients, representing a combined investment portfolio value exceeding $2 billion in managed assets. The presentations focused on emerging biotechnology companies developing revolutionary medical treatments and sustainable energy infrastructure projects that could reshape global energy markets within the next decade. The biotechnology opportunity that captured my primary attention involved a startup company developing personalized cancer treatment protocols using artificial intelligence to analyze individual patient genetic profiles and design targeted therapeutic approaches. The technology had demonstrated remarkable success rates in preliminary clinical trials, with patient response rates exceeding 70% compared to traditional treatment protocols that typically achieved response rates below 30% for similar cancer types. The investment structure required minimum commitments of $5 million per participating investor, with potential returns projected to reach 20 to 30 times initial investment amounts if the technology achieved successful commercialization and regulatory approval. The timeline for potential returns extended over 7 to 10 years, but the market opportunity represented hundreds of billions of dollars annually if the personalized treatment approach could be scaled across multiple cancer types and integrated into standard medical practice protocols. Sustainable Energy Infrastructure Project presented equally compelling investment potential through development of next-generation battery storage systems that could revolutionize renewable energy implementation by solving the intermittency challenges that currently limited solar and wind power adoption. The technology utilized advanced materials science to create battery systems with storage capacity and durability that exceeded current market solutions by substantial margins, while reducing manufacturing costs through innovative production process. The investment opportunity required initial commitments of $3 million per investors, with projected returns of 15 to 25 times original investment amounts if the technology achieved commercial-scale production and market adoption across utility companies and residential energy storage applications. The global market for advanced battery storage systems was projected to exceed $500 billion annually within 15 years, as renewable energy adoption accelerated and traditional energy infrastructure required modernization to accommodate distributed power generation systems. The professional networking aspects of the conference provided equally valuable opportunities for strategic relationship development with other high-net-worth investors who shared similar investment philosophies and risk tolerance levels. The conversations revealed sophisticated approaches to portfolio construction and risk management that extended far beyond traditional investment strategies, including private equity partnerships, international real estate development projects, and strategic acquisitions of promising technology companies before they achieved mainstream market recognition. These professional relationships represented access to investment opportunities that were typically unavailable to individual investors, regardless of their financial resources, since many of the most promising early-stage investments required coordinated group participation and shared due diligence efforts that exceeded the capabilities of individual analysis. The venture capital partnerships that emerged from these networking connections could provide preferential access to startup companies with exceptional growth potential and innovative technology solutions that addressed significant market needs. The contrast between the sophisticated investment discussions at the Goldman Sachs conference and my family's continued concerns about my basic financial planning had become almost surreal in its disconnect from reality. While I evaluated multi-million-dollar investment opportunities with some of the most successful private investors in the country, my family members continued to express worry about my retirement planning and suggest entry-level employment opportunities that might provide more reliable income than my current investment activity. The psychological complexity of managing this dual existence
had intensified as my professional investment activities became increasingly sophisticated and my family's misconceptions about my financial situation became more deeply entrenched. The biotechnology and sustainable energy investments that I was considering represented strategic commitments that could multiply my current portfolio value within a decade. While my family worried about my ability to accumulate sufficient savings for basic retirement security through traditional employment and modest investment contributions, the decision-making framework that guided my investment selections had been refined through years of successful technology sector investing and continuous education about emerging market opportunities and risk assessment methodology. The artificial intelligence expertise that enabled my evaluation of the personalized cancer treatment technology had been developed through intensive study of machine learning applications and medical technology innovation trends that extended far beyond casual investor knowledge. The materials science background that informed my assessment of the battery storage opportunity had been acquired through professional development courses and industry conference participation that provided deep technical understanding of energy storage challenges and potential solutions. The financial analysis capabilities that guided my portfolio construction decisions had been enhanced through executive education programs and strategic consulting relationships with investment professionals who specialized in early-stage technology evaluation. This expertise development had required substantial time investment and intellectual commitment that occurred outside traditional academic or corporate training environments, demonstrating capabilities and knowledge acquisition that my family had never recognized or acknowledged. The professional competence that enabled my investment success had been achieved through self-directed learning and practical application that validated my decision to pursue non-traditional career development rather than conventional employment paths that my family continued to recommend. The Goldman Sachs investment advisor who managed my portfolio relationships had begun referring other high-net-worth clients to me for strategic guidance about technology sector opportunity. Recognizing my demonstrated expertise in identifying promising investments before they achieved mainstream market adoption, these referral relationships provided additional validation of my investment capabilities while generating consulting income that exceeded what most corporate executives earned through traditional employment arrangements. The consulting engagements involved strategic analysis of emerging technology companies for other private investors who lacked the technical background necessary to evaluate complex innovation opportunities. The artificial intelligence startups that I analyzed for client investment consideration required deep understanding of machine learning applications and market adoption challenges that extended far beyond financial analysis capabilities that most investment professionals possess. The biotechnology companies that I evaluated for strategic investment potential demanded comprehensive knowledge of regulatory approval processes and clinical trial methodologies that required specialized expertise in medical technology development. The renewable energy ventures that I assessed for portfolio inclusion needed sophisticated understanding of engineering feasibility and market infrastructure requirements that combined technical knowledge with financial analysis capability. These consulting relationships had established my reputation as a strategic advisor for technology sector investing within professional circles that included institutional fund managers and family office investment teams. The recognition of my expertise by sophisticated investment professionals provided external validation of my capabilities while generating additional income streams that remained completely invisible to family members who continued to view my career choices as evidence of impractical decision-making and limited earning potential. The documentation of my investment performance and professional recognition had become increasingly comprehensive as regulatory requirements and client management considerations demanded detailed records of advisory activities and portfolio management decisions. The performance attribution analysis that tracked my investment recommendations for other clients demonstrated consistent success rates that exceeded industry benchmarks for technology sector investing and early-stage venture capital participation. The most recent analysis of my advisory recommendations had shown that portfolio allocations, based on my strategic guidance, had generated average annual returns of 38% over 3 years, compared to technology sector average returns of 22% during the same period. This performance differential had resulted in substantial additional wealth creation for clients who followed my investment recommendations, while establishing my reputation as a strategic advisor capable of identifying exceptional investment opportunities before they achieved broad market recognition. The financial impact of my consulting activities had become substantial enough to represent a significant income source, independent of my personal investment portfolio return. Yet this professional success remained completely hidden from family members, who continued to express concern about my career development and earning potential. The strategic advisory relationships that validated my expertise and provided substantial compensation operated in professional circles that my family knew nothing about and would not have understood even if they became aware of these activities. The complexity of maintaining professional relationships and business activities that generated substantial income while allowing family members to believe that I struggled with basic financial stability had created psychological tension that required careful emotional management and sophisticated information compartmentalization. The consulting clients, who valued my strategic guidance and paid substantial fees for my advisory services, contrasted sharply with family members who worried about my ability to support myself through what they perceived as inconsistent freelance activities and modest investment returns. The preparation for my mother's birthday celebration had included careful consideration of how to manage family interactions while maintaining the professional obligations and investment activities that comprised my actual career responsibility. The biotechnology investment decision required completion of due diligence analysis and coordination with other participating investors within specific timeline constraints that coincided with family celebration scheduling. The sustainable energy opportunity demanded strategic evaluation and capital allocation decisions that would determine my participation level in a potentially transformative investment that could generate exceptional returns over the next decade. These professional responsibilities represented the reality of my career activities, while my family prepared for a dinner conversation that would likely include continued expressions of concern about my financial future and suggestions for more traditional employment opportunities. The foundation had been established for increasingly complex management of professional success and family relationships, as my investment activities became more sophisticated and my expertise gained broader recognition, while family misconceptions about my financial situation and career prospects remained unchanged. The pattern of concealing achievement while maintaining family connections had created tension that would ultimately require resolution through circumstances beyond my direct control. The morning before my mother's birthday celebration brought expected developments that would eventually create the circumstances for the revelation that I had been unconsciously preparing for yet actively avoiding. The first significant event occurred when Forbes published their annual list of successful female technology investors under 40, and my photograph appeared alongside a detailed profile of my investment strategy and portfolio performance achievement. The article described my approach to artificial intelligence and biotechnology investing as pioneering work that had identified breakthrough technologies before mainstream market recognition. The piece included specific performance metrics that demonstrated exceptional returns across multiple investment categories and quoted industry analysts who praised my strategic analysis capabilities and early-stage company evaluation expertise. The Forbes profile represented the type of professional recognition that I had never sought, but which naturally emerged from sustained investment success and strategic advisory activity. The publication had contacted me several months earlier through my investment management firm, requesting an interview about my technology sector investing approach and the methodologies that enabled consistent identification of promising startup companies. The interview process had required careful consideration of how much professional visibility I was prepared to accept, knowing that increased public recognition of my investment success would inevitably become known to family members who remained convinced that my career choices demonstrated poor judgment and limited earning potential. However, the opportunity to share insights about technology investing with other professionals and potentially influence broader adoption of strategic approaches that I had proven successful ultimately convinced me to participate in the feature article. The Forbes photographer had captured images at my home office, which required temporary rearrangement of investment monitoring equipment and strategic planning materials to create professional backgrounds that did not reveal the full scope of my investment operations to readers who might recognize the sophisticated infrastructure required for high-level portfolio management activities. The article included quotes from venture capital partners who described my technical analysis capabilities and strategic guidance as valuable contributions to early-stage investment decisions. The piece mentioned my consulting relationships with institutional investors and family office investment teams, without revealing specific client identities or project details that might compromise professional confidentiality requirements. The biographical information focused on my education background in computer science and subsequent transition to independent technology investing, without extensive discussion of family relationships or personal circumstances that might create complications for maintaining privacy about my financial situation. The professional focus of the article aligned with my preference for recognition based on achievement rather than personal details that might generate unwanted attention or family dynamics challenge. The second significant development occurred when the biotechnology investment opportunity from the Goldman Sachs conference required immediate decision-making due to accelerated timeline constraints related to regulatory approval processes and clinical trial scheduling. The company had received preliminary approval for expanded human trials that would begin within 6 months, creating urgency for investor commitments that needed completion before the next development phase commenced. The investment structure required coordination with other participating investors to finalize legal documentation and capital commitment schedules that would support the expanded clinical trial program. The due diligence process had been completed successfully, confirming the technology's breakthrough potential and the management team's capability to execute successful commercialization strategies if regulatory approval processes proceeded as projected. The financial commitment represented the largest single investment in my portfolio history, requiring capital allocation that would temporarily reduce liquidity reserves while positioning my portfolio for potentially transformative returns if the personalized cancer treatment technology achieved commercial success. The risk-reward analysis supported the investment decision, but the magnitude of the capital commitment would necessarily impact my ability to provide family financial assistance at previous levels without revealing the actual source of my available resources. The investment timing coincided with Emma's request for additional business development support to fund expansion of her consulting practice into new market segments that required substantial upfront marketing expenditures and professional development costs. Her expansion plans represented logical business growth strategies that could significantly increase her revenue potential, but the capital requirements had increased beyond her available resources and traditional lending options. The complexity of managing Emma's assistance request while committing substantial capital to the biotechnology investment required strategic planning that balanced family support obligations with professional investment opportunities that could generate exceptional long-term returns. The emotional difficulty of potentially declining Emma's assistance request while possessing abundant capital resources created internal conflict between family loyalty and optimal portfolio management decisions. The third significant development involved an unexpected invitation to join the board of directors for one of my most successful artificial intelligence investments. Recognizing my strategic contributions to the company's development and acknowledging my expertise in evaluating market opportunities and competitive positioning strategy, the board position offered substantial additional compensation along with equity participation that could multiply my investment returns if the company achieved projected growth targets. The director responsibilities would require quarterly meetings and strategic planning participation that would provide valuable insights into advanced artificial intelligence development while generating professional recognition within the technology sector leadership community. However, accepting the board position would necessarily create public records of my involvement with a high-profile technology company that might become known to family members through media coverage or professional network connection. The artificial intelligence company had achieved remarkable success since my initial investment during their early development phase, with revenue growth exceeding projections and market adoption accelerating beyond initial timeline estimates. The technology applications had expanded into multiple industry sectors, creating diverse revenue streams that reduced dependence on any single market segment while establishing the company as a leader in practical artificial intelligence implementation.
The board invitation represented recognition of my strategic guidance during critical development phases and acknowledgement of my continued value as an advisor for future growth strategies. The other board members included technology industry executives and institutional investors, whose expertise and professional networks could provide valuable connections for my own investment activities and strategic advisory relationships. The compensation structure for the board position included annual retainer payments that exceeded most corporate executive salaries, along with equity grants that would vest over 4 years and provide substantial additional returns if the company maintained projected growth trajectories. The financial benefits of board participation would create another income source that remained invisible to family members while significantly increasing my overall earning potential. The psychological impact of receiving professional recognition that validated my expertise while maintaining family relationships, based on assumptions about my career failures, had created internal tension that required careful emotional management and strategic decision-making about how much success I could accept without fundamentally altering family dynamics. The Forbes article, Biotechnology Investment Opportunity and Board Invitation, represented simultaneous validation of my professional capabilities while highlighting the extent of deception required to maintain family relationships built on misconceptions about my financial situation. The preparation for my mother's birthday celebration required management of these professional developments while maintaining the emotional availability and family focus that such occasions demanded. The complexity of compartmentalizing significant career achievements while participating in family interactions that included continued expressions of concern about my professional prospects had become increasingly challenging as the disparity between perception and reality reached extreme level. The invitation from Emma to accompany the family to dinner at Meridian Bank's executive dining room had been presented as a special treat that would provide an elegant setting for celebrating our mother's 70th birthday. Emma had arranged the private dining reservation through her business banking relationship, describing the venue as an exclusive facility that would create memorable birthday celebration experiences for our parents. The irony of celebrating at a banking facility while family members remained unaware of my actual relationship with financial institutions had seemed manageable when Emma first suggested the location. However, the recent professional developments had created circumstances where the banking environment might generate unexpected complications if my investment management relationships became apparent through routine interactions with financial services personnel. The Meridian Bank executive dining facility served primarily institutional clients and high-net-worth individuals who maintained substantial business relationships with the bank's private wealth management and investment services division. The venue had been selected by Emma based on her business banking connections, but the client base typically included individuals whose financial profiles might overlap with my own investment management activities. The possibility of encountering investment professionals or private wealth management personnel who recognized me from business relationships had required careful consideration of how to manage potential professional interactions while maintaining family celebration focus and avoiding conversations that might reveal my actual financial situation to relatives who remain convinced that I struggled with basic economic stability. The strategic planning for managing potential complications at the banking venue had included preparation of casual explanations for any business relationships that might become apparent through routine interactions with bank personnel. However, the recent Forbes article publication had increased the likelihood that financial services professionals might recognize me from media coverage rather than direct business relationships, creating scenarios that could be more difficult to manage discreetly. The foundation established for potentially dramatic revelation of my professional success and financial achievements through circumstances that would extend beyond my direct control once family celebration activities commenced in an environment where my actual business relationships and investment management activities might become apparent to relatives who had spent years expressing concern about my career prospects and financial security. The morning of my mother's birthday celebration required strategic coordination of professional obligations and family commitments that had become increasingly complex as my investment activities demanded immediate attention while maintaining the emotional availability that family occasions require. The biotechnology investment documentation needed final review and execution before the afternoon deadline, while the Forbes article responses required acknowledgement of professional congratulations from colleagues and strategic partners who recognized the significance of the publication feature. The investment commitment process involved coordination with legal representatives and fund administrators who managed the Biotechnology Opportunities Investor Consortium. The documentation included sophisticated risk assessment parameters and performance projection methodologies that reflected the advanced due diligence procedures required for investments of this magnitude and complexity. The capital commitment would establish my position as one of the principal investors in a technology that could potentially revolutionize cancer treatment protocols, while generating exceptional financial returns if commercial development proceeded according to strategic projections. The legal framework for the biotechnology investment incorporated intellectual property protections and regulatory milestone requirements that would govern the development timeline and investor participation structures throughout the clinical trial phases and commercialization process. The investment terms included preferred equity positions that would provide enhanced returns and strategic influence over company development decisions, while protecting investor capital through structured liquidation preferences and anti-dilution provision. The complexity of the investment documentation reflected the sophisticated nature of early-stage biotechnology investing, where technical feasibility assessment required specialized expertise in regulatory approval processes, demanded comprehensive understanding of clinical trial methodologies, and pharmaceutical industry development standards. The strategic analysis that supported my investment decision had incorporated evaluation of competitive technology platforms and market adoption scenarios that extended far beyond conventional financial analysis capability. The professional congratulations regarding the Forbes article had arrived throughout the morning from investment colleagues and strategic partners who recognized the significance of media recognition for technology sector investing expertise. The responses included invitations to additional speaking opportunities and consulting engagements that would provide further validation of my professional capabilities while generating substantial additional income through strategic advisory activity. The speaking opportunity invitations included technology conferences and investment symposiums, where my insights about artificial intelligence and biotechnology investing could influence broader adoption of strategic approaches that I had proven successful through consistent portfolio performance. The consulting engagement requests involved evaluation of emerging technology companies for institutional investors and family office investment teams who valued my demonstrated expertise in identifying promising opportunities before they achieved mainstream market recognition. The coordination of these professional opportunities with family celebration obligations required careful time management and emotional compartmentalization that had become increasingly challenging as my investment activities generated demands that conflicted with family relationship maintenance. The biotechnology investment deadline coincided with preparation activities for the birthday celebration, while the professional responses to the Forbes article demanded immediate attention during time that should have been devoted to family focus and celebration preparation. The complexity of managing significant professional achievements while maintaining family relationships based on assumptions about career failure had intensified as external recognition of my success became more frequent and more visible to professional circles that might eventually intersect with my internal relationships. The Forbes article represented public acknowledgement of investment expertise that contradicted family perceptions about my career prospects and financial capability. The preparation for the birthday celebration at Meridian Bank's executive dining facility required consideration of potential interactions with banking personnel who might recognize my professional activities through business relationships or media coverage. The executive dining room served primarily high-net-worth clients and institutional investors whose financial profiles often overlapped with private wealth management services and investment advisory relationships that I maintained through my portfolio management activities. The possibility of encountering private wealth management professionals who recognized my investment activities had required strategic planning about how to manage professional interactions while maintaining family celebration focus and avoiding conversations that might reveal my actual financial situation. Relatives who remained convinced that I struggled with basic economic stability. The banking environment created potential for routine business interactions that could expose the sophistication of my financial relationships to family members who had no preparation for such revelation. The strategic approach to managing potential complications involved preparation of casual explanations for any business relationships that might become apparent through interactions with bank personnel while maintaining focus on family celebration activities and avoiding discussions that might generate questions about the scope of my investment management activities or the magnitude of my portfolio relationships with financial institutions. The emotional preparation for the family celebration required psychological compartmentalization of recent professional achievements and strategic focus on family relationships that had been maintained through careful management of information about my career success and financial position. Birthday celebration represented an opportunity to express genuine affection and family commitment while continuing to protect relatives from knowledge about wealth disparities that might complicate family dynamics or create uncomfortable questions about years of deception regarding my actual financial capabilities. The complexity of maintaining authentic family relationships while concealing fundamental aspects of my professional life and financial situation had created psychological tension that required continuous emotional management and strategic decision-making about how much truth could be revealed without disrupting relationships that I valued deeply despite their foundation on misconceptions about my career achievements and investment success. The drive to Meridian Bank's executive dining facility provided time for final psychological preparation for family interactions that would require careful balance between genuine celebration participation and continued management of professional secrecy that had defined my approach to family relationships for nearly a decade. The banking environment would create additional complexity due to potential professional interactions that might expose aspects of my financial situation that family members were not prepared to understand or accept. The executive dining facility occupied the top floor of Meridian Bank's downtown headquarters building, with panoramic city views and sophisticated interior design that reflected the institution's focus on serving high-net-worth clients and institutional investors. The venue had been selected by Emma based on her business banking relationship, but the client base typically included individuals whose financial profiles required private wealth management services and investment advisory relationships, similar to those that I maintained through my portfolio management activity. The arrival coordination with family members required management of parking arrangements and building access procedures that might create opportunities for interactions with bank personnel who recognized my professional activity. The executive dining facility required security clearance and identification verification procedures that were standard for financial institutions serving high-net-worth clients, but which might generate questions from family members who were not familiar with such security protocols. Emotional anticipation of potential professional recognition in front of family members who had no context for understanding my actual business relationships with financial institutions had created anxiety
that required careful management through focus on celebration objectives and family relationship priorities rather than concern about potential exposure of professional activities that I had been concealing for years. The coordination with Emma regarding celebration logistics had included discussion of dining preferences and gift presentation schedules that would structure the birthday celebration activities and provide natural conversation topics that could maintain family focus while potentially deflecting attention from any business interactions that might occur with bank personnel during the dining experience. The psychological complexity of participating in family celebration while managing potential professional exposure had required strategic preparation for various scenarios that might develop based on routine interactions with banking facility personnel who might recognize my investment management relationships or professional activities through business connections or media coverage that had become increasingly visible within financial services industry circles. The foundation had been established for family celebration activities that would occur within an environment where my actual professional relationships and financial capabilities might become apparent through circumstances beyond my direct control, creating potential for dramatic revelation of career success and investment achievements that family members were not prepared to understand or integrate with their existing assumptions about my professional failures and economic limitations. The birthday celebration would proceed according to family expectations and celebration traditions, while the banking environment created unprecedented risk for exposure of professional truth that could fundamentally alter family dynamics and force acknowledgement of deception that had protect relatives from knowledge about wealth disparities and career achievements that contradicted their deeply held beliefs about my life circumstances and professional capability. The strategic management of these competing demands would require sustained focus on family relationship priorities while maintaining professional composure if business interactions became necessary, balancing celebration participation with potential need for discrete management of professional recognition that could create complications for family relationships that had been carefully maintained through years of systematic information management and strategic deception about my actual career success and financial position. The emotional stakes of the birthday celebration had increased substantially due to environmental factors that created potential for involuntary revelation of professional achievements and financial resources that family members were not prepared to understand, accept, or integrate with their existing understanding of my career trajectory and life circumstances that had been shaped by assumptions and misconceptions that I had actively maintained through careful management of information about my actual professional activities and investment success. The arrival at Meridian Bank's executive dining facility proceeded according to the careful coordination that Emma had arranged through her business banking relationships. The building's imposing glass facade reflected the late afternoon sunlight across downtown's financial district, creating an atmosphere of institutional prestige that immediately impressed my parents, who remarked about the sophisticated venue selection for our mother's 70th birthday celebration. The security procedures required for accessing the executive floors demonstrated the level of exclusivity that characterized Meridian Bank's private client services. Each family member needed to present identification and receive temporary access credentials that would permit elevator access to the 32nd floor dining facility. The security protocols impressed Miguel, who commented that the building's safety measures exceeded those of most corporate law offices where he conducted business meetings. My mother expressed appreciation for Emma's thoughtfulness in selecting such an elegant venue for her birthday celebration, noting that the sophisticated atmosphere would create lasting memories of this significant milestone occasion. The genuine pleasure that my parents derived from the upscale environment reinforced Emma's satisfaction with her venue selection, while creating positive emotional foundation for the family gathering that would celebrate our mother's 7 decades of life experiences and achievement. The elevator journey to the executive dining facility provided opportunities for family conversation about the impressive building architecture and the panoramic city views that became visible as we ascended toward the upper floor. Emma explained that her business banking relationship had provided access to this exclusive venue, which typically served corporate executives and high-net-worth individuals who maintained substantial financial relationships with Meridian Bank's private wealth management division. The psychological tension that I experienced during the elevator ascent reflected my awareness that the executive dining facility served primarily the same client demographic that comprised my investment management relationships and strategic advisory activity. The possibility of encountering private wealth management personnel or other high-net-worth clients who might recognize me from business interactions had created anxiety that required careful emotional management while maintaining focus on family celebration objectives. The executive dining facility exceeded the elegant atmosphere that Emma had described when she first suggested the venue for our mother's birthday celebration. The interior design incorporated sophisticated materials and artistic elements that created an environment of refined luxury, while panoramic windows provided spectacular views of the city's financial district and surrounding metropolitan area. The attention to aesthetic detail reflected Meridian Bank's commitment to providing exceptional experiences for their most valued clients. The hostess who greeted our family at the dining facility entrance demonstrated the level of personalized service that characterized interactions with Meridian Bank's private client services. Her professional demeanor and immediate recognition of Emma's reservation details indicated the systematic approach that the bank employed for managing relationships with business clients who utilized their exclusive facilities for important personal and professional occasions. The seating arrangements that Emma had requested positioned our family at a corner table that maximized privacy while providing unobstructed views of the city's architectural landmarks and natural landscape features. The table selection demonstrated Emma's consideration for our mother's preferences and her desire to create optimal conditions for intimate family conversation during the birthday celebration activity. The initial conversation topics focused on appreciation for the sophisticated venue and admiration for the panoramic views that provided dramatic backdrop for our family gathering. My father commented about the impressive engineering required for the building's construction, while my mother expressed delight with the elegant table settings and floral arrangements that enhanced the celebratory atmosphere of the dining environment. The menu presentation revealed the caliber of culinary excellence that Meridian Bank provided for their executive dining facility clients. The selection included sophisticated options that reflected both classical preparation techniques and contemporary culinary innovation, with particular attention to ingredient quality and presentation standards that would satisfy the expectations of discerning clientele who frequented the exclusive venue. The conversation during menu review naturally transitioned toward discussion of recent family developments and professional achievements that had occurred since our previous gathering. Emma shared updates about her consulting practice expansion and the new client relationships that had emerged through strategic marketing initiatives and professional networking activities that were extending her business influence within regional corporate markets. Miguel discussed recent legal victories and the professional recognition that he had received from colleagues who valued his expertise in complex commercial litigation matters. His practice had achieved substantial growth through referral relationships and strategic positioning within specialized legal markets that required sophisticated analysis and innovative problem-solving approaches. The discussion of professional achievements created natural opportunities for family members to inquire about my career developments and investment activities, following the familiar pattern of supportive concern that characterized their approach to understanding my non-traditional career path. However, the timing of these inquiries coincided with the arrival of our assigned server, who would provide personalized attention throughout the dining experience. The server introduction process revealed an unexpected complication that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of our family celebration. The young woman who approached our table carried herself with the professional confidence that characterized Meridian Bank's commitment to exceptional client service. But her initial greeting demonstrated immediate recognition that extended beyond routine hospitality protocol. "Good evening, and welcome to Meridian Bank's executive dining facility." She began with practiced professionalism. "My name is Jennifer, and I will be providing personalized service for your celebration." Her tone remained appropriately formal, but her direct eye contact with me indicated recognition that created immediate concern about potential complications for family celebration dynamics. "Ms. Rodriguez," Jennifer continued, addressing me directly with obvious familiarity, "it is wonderful to see you again. I hope your recent investment conference experiences have continued to provide valuable opportunities for portfolio development and strategic partnership." Her comment referenced professional activities that family members had no knowledge about, creating immediate tension about how to respond without revealing the sophisticated nature of my business relationships with financial institutions. The silence that followed Jennifer's greeting reflected the confused surprise that family members experienced when confronted with evidence of professional relationships that contradicted their assumptions about my career activities and financial situation. Emma's expression revealed particular confusion about why a Meridian Bank employee would recognize me from investment conference activities, while Miguel appeared puzzled about references to portfolio development that seemed inconsistent with their understanding of my modest investment activity. My parents exchanged glances that indicated their uncertainty about how to interpret Jennifer's comments about conference experiences and strategic partnerships, since these references suggested professional activities that extended far beyond the freelance work and small-scale investing that they believed comprised my career activity. The disconnect between Jennifer's professional recognition and their assumptions about my financial situation created visible confusion that required immediate management to prevent escalation of questions that could expose the sophistication of my actual business relationship. "Thank you, Jennifer," I responded carefully, attempting to minimize the significance of her recognition while redirecting attention toward family celebration priority. "Tonight is focused on celebrating my mother's birthday, so we would appreciate your assistance in creating a memorable dining experience for this special family occasion." My response sought to acknowledge her greeting while establishing boundaries around professional discussion that might complicate family celebration dynamics. However, Jennifer's enthusiasm about our previous interactions continued to create complications for my efforts to maintain family focus on birthday celebration activities. "Of course, Ms. Rodriguez, I remember how much you appreciated our private dining experiences during your strategic planning sessions with the wealth management team. Should I arrange for Mr. Patterson to stop by this evening to discuss your recent portfolio performance, or would you prefer to schedule separate meetings for ongoing investment coordination?" The reference to wealth management team interactions and portfolio performance discussions created another layer of confusion. Family members, who had no context for understanding why I would have strategic planning sessions with banking professionals or require ongoing investment coordination that involved private dining experiences and scheduled meetings with portfolio managers. Emma's expression had shifted from confusion to something approaching suspicion as she processed the implications of Jennifer's comments about wealth management relationships and strategic planning activities that seemed inconsistent with her understanding of my financial situation and investment capability. The references to portfolio performance and ongoing coordination suggested business relationships that required substantial capital resources and sophisticated investment management services. Miguel's legal training had apparently enabled him to recognize the significance of references to wealth management services and portfolio coordination, since his expression indicated growing awareness that Jennifer's comments suggested financial relationships that extended far beyond basic banking services or modest investment activities that might be available to typical retail clients. My parents appeared primarily confused by the technical language about portfolio performance and investment coordination, but their expressions indicated awareness that Jennifer's professional familiarity with my activities suggested business relationships that they had no knowledge about and which seemed inconsistent with their assumptions about my career circumstances and financial capabilities. The psychological pressure of managing family confusion while maintaining professional composure in response to Jennifer's enthusiastic recognition had created internal tension that required immediate strategic decision-making about how to address the situation without either rudely dismissing Jennifer's professional courtesy or revealing information about my financial relationships that would fundamentally alter family dynamics and force acknowledgement of deception that had protected relatives from knowledge about wealth disparities and career achievement. The foundation had been established for increasingly complex family dynamics as Jennifer's professional recognition had exposed aspects of my business relationships that contradicted family assumptions about my financial situation, creating circumstances that would require either continued deception through increasingly sophisticated explanations or acknowledgement of career success and investment achievements that family members were not prepared to understand or integrate with their existing beliefs about my professional failures and economic limitations. The strategic decision-making required to address Jennifer's continued professional recognition while maintaining family celebration focus had become increasingly complex as her enthusiasm about our previous business interactions generated additional references to activities that contradicted family assumptions about my financial situation.
The challenge of providing appropriate responses without revealing the sophisticated nature of my wealth management relationships required careful balance between professional courtesy and information management that protected family dynamics from disruptive revelation. "Jennifer, I appreciate your thoughtful service approach," I responded, attempting to establish professional boundaries while maintaining cordial interaction that would not create awkward tension for family celebration activities. "This evening represents special time with family, so our focus should remain on creating exceptional dining experiences rather than business discussion. Perhaps we could arrange separate coordination for any portfolio matters that require attention." My response sought to acknowledge professional familiarity while redirecting conversation toward family celebration priorities that would minimize continued references to business relationships that family members could not understand without fundamental revision of their assumptions about my career circumstances and financial capabilities. However, the careful language required to manage this balance created additional complexity that family members began to recognize as unusual patterns of interaction that demanded explanation. Emma's expression had evolved from initial confusion to active scrutiny as she processed the implications of Jennifer's references to portfolio coordination and wealth management services that suggested business relationships requiring substantial financial resources and sophisticated investment management capability. Her background in business consulting had provided analytical skills that enabled recognition of professional terminology and service levels that typically served high net worth clients rather than individuals with modest investment activity. "Victoria," Emma interjected with direct curiosity that indicated her intention to pursue clarification about Jennifer's comments. "I was not aware that you maintained investment relationships that required portfolio coordination or wealth management service. Could you help me understand what types of investment activities would involve strategic planning sessions with banking professionals?" The directness of Emma's inquiry represented departure from previous family approaches to discussing my career activity, which had typically involved gentle expressions of concern rather than specific questions about business relationships and professional activities that might reveal information about my actual financial situation. Her analytical approach reflected growing awareness that Jennifer's professional recognition suggested circumstances that required explanation or acknowledgement of career achievements that had been concealed from family knowledge. Miguel's legal training had apparently enabled him to recognize the significance of wealth management terminology and the service levels that Jennifer's comments implied about my banking relationship. His expression indicated growing comprehension that portfolio coordination and strategic planning sessions suggested financial circumstances that contradicted family assumptions about my economic situation and investment capability. The terminology that Jennifer used suggests private wealth management services that typically require substantial asset levels and sophisticated investment portfolios. Miguel observed with professional analysis that demonstrated his understanding of financial services industry structures and client qualification requirements. These services are generally reserved for individuals with significant capital resources and complex investment management needs. Analytical discussion between Emma and Miguel about the implications of Jennifer's professional recognition had created circumstances where continued deflection of their questions would appear increasingly suspicious and potentially damage family relationships through obvious deception. Business activities that had become apparent through Jennifer's enthusiastic acknowledgement of our previous interactions. My parents remained primarily confused by the technical discussion about wealth management services and portfolio coordination, but their expressions indicated awareness that their children were engaged in analytical conversation about my professional activities that suggested financial circumstances different from their assumptions about my career situation and economic capabilities. The psychological pressure of managed family scrutiny, while maintaining professional composure in response to Jennifer's continued presence at our table, had intensified as the conversation shifted from general confusion about her recognition to specific analysis of the business relationships and service levels that her comments imply about my financial situation and investment management activities. Jennifer's professional training had apparently not prepared her for managing situations where client recognition might create complications for personal relationships. Since her enthusiasm about demonstrating familiarity with my business activities continued to generate references that exposed aspects of my financial relationships, despite my attempts to redirect conversation toward family celebration priorities. Ms. Rodriguez, I should mention that Ms. Patterson asked me to convey his congratulations about the Forbes article recognition. Jennifer continued with obvious pride about serving a client who had received prestigious media coverage. He was particularly impressed by the analysis of your artificial intelligence investment strategy and the performance metrics that demonstrated exceptional portfolio returns over the past several years. The reference to Forbes article recognition and performance metrics created another level of revelation that fundamentally altered family understanding about my professional activities and career achievement. The mention of exceptional portfolio returns over several years contradicted family assumptions about my modest investment activities and limited financial success through non-traditional career approaches. Emma's expression shifted from analytical curiosity to something approaching shock as she processed the implications of media recognition for investment expertise and portfolio performance that suggested career achievements and financial success that had been completely concealed from family knowledge throughout years of family interactions and discussions about my professional prospects. Forbes published an article about your investment activity. Emma asked with obvious surprise that reflected her recognition of the prestigious nature of such media coverage and the professional achievements that would be required to merit feature article recognition from a prominent business publication. The directness of her question required immediate response that would either acknowledge the media recognition and expose years of deception about my career success, or attempt continued minimization that would appear increasingly implausible, given Jennifer's specific references to article content and professional achievements that could be verified through public media sources. Miguel's legal analysis had apparently enabled him to comprehend the full implications of Forbes article recognition combined with references to exceptional portfolio performance and artificial intelligence investment expertise. His expression indicated growing awareness that these achievements suggested professional success and financial capabilities that contradicted fundamental assumptions about my career circumstances that had shaped family relationships for years. Victoria, Miguel said with careful consideration that reflected his legal training in evidence evaluation, Forbes recognition for investment expertise combined with references to exceptional portfolio performance suggests professional achievements and financial success that we have not been aware of. Could you help us understand the scope of your investment activities and the career development that has led to this level of professional recognition? The formal nature of Miguel's inquiry indicated his transition from family celebration mode to professional analysis mode, where his legal training guided systematic examination of evidence that suggested circumstances requiring explanation and potential acknowledgement of information that had been concealed from family knowledge. My parents had remained largely silent during the analytical discussion between Emma and Miguel, but their expressions indicated growing awareness that their children were discovering information about my professional activities that suggested career achievements and financial success that contradicted their understanding of my life circumstances and professional development. The emotional complexity of managing family discovery of career success and financial achievements, while maintaining celebration focus for my mother's birthday, had created internal tension that required immediate strategic decision-making about how much truth to acknowledge without completely disrupting family celebration activities, or creating uncomfortable confrontation about years of systematic deception regarding my actual professional accomplishments. Jennifer remained at our table with obvious uncertainty about whether her professional enthusiasm had created complications for my family relationship. Her expression indicated growing awareness that her comments about business activities and media recognition had generated family discussion that suggested my relatives had limited knowledge about my professional achievements and investment management activities. The foundation had established for increasingly direct family confrontation about my career success and financial achievements, as Jennifer's professional recognition had exposed specific evidence of accomplishments that could not be explained through continued minimization or deflection of family questions about the business relationships and media coverage that contradicted their assumptions about my professional failures and economic limitations. The birthday celebration had transformed from family gathering, focused on maternal appreciation, to analytical examination of evidence, suggesting professional deception and concealed achievements that would require either continued sophisticated explanation or acknowledgement of career success and financial capabilities that family members were discovering despite years of systematic information management that had protected them from knowledge of wealth disparities and investment expertise that exceeded their comprehension or preparation for such revelation. The strategic management of this escalating situation required immediate decision-making about how to address family demands for explanation while maintaining some possibility of preserving celebration objectives and family relationship stability, despite the fundamental disruption of assumptions that had guided family dynamics throughout years of interactions based on misconceptions about my professional trajectory and financial circumstances that were being exposed, circumstances beyond my direct control. The mounting tension at our table had reached a threshold where continued deflection would compromise family relationships, while complete revelation would fundamentally alter dynamics that had defined our interactions for years. The analytical examination that Emma and Miguel were conducting had created circumstances where strategic response required careful balance between acknowledging sufficient truth to address their legitimate questions, while maintaining protection for family relationships that might be damaged by comprehensive disclosure. The wealth disparities and career achievements that contradicted their deeply held assumptions about my professional trajectory. The decision to provide partial acknowledgement of my investment activities, while minimizing the magnitude of my financial success, represented an attempt to manage the immediate crisis created by Jennifer's professional recognition without exposing the full scope of my portfolio performance and career achievements that would necessarily force acknowledgement of years of systematic deception about my economic circumstances and professional capability. The Forbes article did feature my approach to technology investing, I confirmed, providing acknowledgement that could no longer be avoided, given Jennifer's specific references to media coverage that family members could verify through public sources. My investment focus on artificial intelligence and biotechnology companies has generated returns that exceeded my initial projections, which attracted attention from financial publications that cover successful individual investors. This response provided factual information while understating the significance of the media recognition
and the magnitude of investment returns that had established my reputation within professional circles. The careful language sought to acknowledge sufficient truth to address family questions, while avoiding revelation of performance metrics and wealth accumulation that would expose the dramatic extent of my financial success. Emma's analytical capabilities had apparently enabled her to recognize that my acknowledgement represented significant understatement of achievements that would merit Forbes recognition. Her business consulting background provided understanding of media coverage standards and the professional accomplishments required to qualify for feature article treatment in prestigious business publications. Victoria, Forbes does not typically feature individual investors unless their achievements represent exceptional performance and substantial portfolio success, Emma observed with professional analysis that demonstrated her comprehension of business media standards and recognition criteria. The investment returns and strategic expertise required for such recognition suggest career accomplishments and financial achievements that extend significantly beyond the modest investment activities that we have been aware of. The precision of Emma's analysis reflected her growing awareness that my acknowledgement represented minimal disclosure of professional success that had been concealed from family knowledge throughout years of interactions where I had accepted their expressions of concern about my career prospects, while possessing investment expertise and financial resources exceeded their understanding or preparation for such revelation. Miguel's legal training had guided his approach to systematic evidence evaluation that combined Jennifer's references to wealth management services with my acknowledgement of media recognition to develop comprehensive assessment of the financial circumstances and professional achievements that had been concealed from family awareness through years of careful information management. The combination of wealth management relationships, strategic planning sessions, and Forbes recognition suggest professional success and financial capabilities that would fundamentally alter our understanding of your career development and economic situation. Miguel stated with legal precision that indicated his recognition of the systematic nature of information concealment that had shaped family relationships based on misconceptions about my actual circumstances. The formal approach that Miguel had adopted reflected his transition from family celebration participation to professional analysis of evidence that suggested extensive deception about career achievements and financial success that had implications extending beyond simple misunderstanding to systematic management of information that had protected family members from knowledge about wealth disparities and professional accomplishments. My parents had remained observers of the analytical discussion between their children, but their expressions indicated growing comprehension that Emma and Miguel were discovering information about my professional activities that suggest circumstances significantly different from their assumptions about my career development and financial securities that had guided their expressions of concern and suggestions for more traditional employment opportunities. The emotional weight of managing family discovery while maintaining some protection for relationships that could be damaged by comprehensive revelation of investment success and career achievements had created internal conflict between acknowledgement of truth that family members deserved and preservation of dynamics that had been carefully constructed to prevent complications from wealth disparities and professional recognition that exceeded their experience or preparation. Jennifer had retreated to a respectful distance from our table, apparently recognizing that her professional enthusiasm about my business relationships had created family complications that required private resolution. However, her continued presence in the dining area served as reminder that additional interactions with banking personnel could generate further exposure of my financial relationships and professional activities that would make continued minimization increasingly difficult to maintain. Strategic assessment of options available for managing the current situation revealed limited alternatives that could preserve both family relationships and professional privacy while addressing the legitimate questions that Emma and Miguel were pursuing through systematic analysis of evidence contradicted. fundamental assumptions about my career circumstances and economic capabilities. The decision to acknowledge additional aspects of my investment success while continuing to minimize the magnitude of financial achievements represented an attempt to provide sufficient truth to satisfy family curiosity without exposing the comprehensive scope of portfolio performance and wealth accumulation that would force recognition of the dramatic extent of deception that had shaped our relationships throughout years of interactions based on misconceptions about my professional development. My investment activities have been more substantial than I have previously indicated, providing admission that recognized the necessity of adjusting family understanding while maintaining protection for information that could create complications for relationships that I valued, despite their foundation on systematic concealment of career success and financial achievement. The technology companies that I invested in during their early development phases achieved growth that exceeded industry projections, generating returns that enabled expansion of my investment activities and attraction of attention from financial services professionals who work with successful individual investors. This explanation provided acknowledgement of investment success while understating the performance levels, wealth accumulation, that had established my position among high net worth clients who received sophisticated portfolio management services and strategic advisory support from premier financial institutions. Emma's expression indicated that my acknowledgement represented progress toward understanding my actual circumstances, while recognizing that the careful language suggested continued minimization of achievements and financial success that would require Forbes recognition and wealth management relationships that Jennifer had referenced through her professional familiarity with my business activities. Victoria, the investment returns required to attract wealth management services and generate media recognition suggest financial success that would place you among high net worth individuals whose circumstances differ substantially from our assumptions about your economic situation. Emma stated, with analytical precision, that demonstrated her growing comprehension of the wealth disparities and professional achievements that had been concealed through years of systematic information management. The directness of Emma's assessment reflected her recognition that my partial acknowledgement continued to understate the magnitude of investment success and financial capabilities that would be required for the professional relationships and media coverage that had been exposed through Jennifer's enthusiastic recognition of my business activities and career achievement. Miguel's legal analysis had apparently enabled him to recognize the strategic nature of my responses, which provided sufficient acknowledgement to address immediate family questions while maintaining protection for information that would expose the comprehensive scope of financial success, professional accomplishments that had been concealed from family knowledge throughout years of carefully managed interactions. The evidence suggests systematic management of information about your professional achievements and financial circumstances. Miguel observed with legal precision that indicated his recognition of the deliberate nature of concealment that had shaped family relationships based on misconceptions about my career development and economic situation. The analytical approach that Miguel had adopted reflected his professional training in evidence evaluation and his growing awareness that the partial acknowledgments I was providing represented strategic disclosure rather than comprehensive revelation of the investment success and wealth accumulation that had been concealed from family understanding through years of careful relationship management. The foundation had been established for continued escalation of family demands for comprehensive explanation of my career achievements and financial circumstances, and Emma and Miguel recognized that my acknowledgments represented minimal disclosure of professional success that extended far beyond their current understanding, while maintaining systematic concealment of information that would fundamentally alter family dynamics and force recognition of wealth disparities that had shaped our relationships through years of deception about my actual economic capabilities and investment expertise that exceeded their experience or preparation for such dramatic revelation. The strategic assessment of my position had reached a conclusion that further minimization would compromise family relationships, while comprehensive disclosure would expose the full magnitude of systematic deception that had shaped our interactions throughout nearly a decade of carefully managed information control. The analytical pressure that Emma and Miguel were applying through their professional expertise had created circumstances where partial acknowledgement would no longer satisfy their legitimate demands for understanding the actual scope of my career achievements and financial circumstances. Recognition that sustained deception had become unsustainable required strategic decision-making about how to provide comprehensive disclosure while maintaining some possibility of preserving family relationships that could be fundamentally altered by revelation of investment success and wealth accumulation that exceeded anything they had imagined possible through my chosen career approach. The emotional complexity of acknowledging years of systematic concealment while expressing genuine commitment to family relationships demanded careful balance between truth-telling and relationship preservation. The decision to provide comprehensive acknowledgement of my professional achievement and financial circumstances represented acceptance that continued protection of family assumptions would require increasingly sophisticated deception that would ultimately damage relationships more significantly than honest disclosure of career success and investment expertise that had generated substantial wealth accumulation through strategic technology sector investing and professional advisory activities.
The investment activities that I have pursued over the past 8 years have generated financial returns that established my position among high-net-worth individuals who receive sophisticated portfolio management services from premier financial institutions. I acknowledged, providing admission that recognized the necessity of comprehensive disclosure while maintaining professional language that would minimize dramatic impact of revelation about wealth disparities and career achievements. The artificial intelligence and biotechnology companies that formed the foundation of my investment strategy achieved market performance that exceeded industry projections by substantial margins, creating portfolio appreciation that multiplied initial investment amounts by factors that enabled continued expansion of investment activities and attraction of professional recognition within technology. Investing circles. This acknowledgement provided factual information about invest performance, while maintaining technical language that would allow family members to process the implications of financial success without dramatic emphasis on specific amounts or wealth accumulation levels that might create uncomfortable focus on economic disparities rather than professional achievement recognition. Emma's analytical capabilities had enabled her to recognize that my comprehensive acknowledgement represented fundamental revision of her understanding about my career development and financial circumstance. Her business consulting background provided framework for comprehending investment performance metrics and wealth management relationships, while her personal knowledge of my lifestyle choices created cognitive dissonance between modest living patterns and substantial financial resources. Victoria, the investment returns and professional recognition that you are describing suggest financial success that would place your net worth substantially above typical individual investor levels. Emma observed with careful consideration that reflected her processing of information that contradicted years of assumptions about my economic situation and career prospects. The wealth management services and media recognition that Jennifer referenced, combined with your acknowledgement of exceptional investment performance, indicate financial achievements that we have had no awareness of throughout years of family interactions where we expressed concern about your career development and economic security. The precision of Emma's analysis demonstrated her growing comprehension, the systematic nature of information concealment that had protected family relationships from knowledge about wealth disparities, while enabling continued family financial assistance that had been provided without revelation of the minimal impact that such support represented relative to my own financial resources and investment portfolio performance. Miguel's legal training had guided his systematic evaluation of evidence that combined my comprehensive acknowledgement with Jennifer's professional references to develop complete assessment of the financial circumstances and career achievements that had been concealed through years of careful relationship management and strategic information control. The magnitude of investment success and professional recognition that you are acknowledging suggests systematic concealment of financial capabilities and career achievement that would fundamentally alter our understanding of family economic dynamics and the assistance relationships that have characterized our interactions over recent years. Miguel stated with legal precision that indicated his recognition of the comprehensive nature of deception that had shaped family relationships. The wealth management relationships and exceptional portfolio performance that you are describing would necessarily require substantial capital resources and sophisticated investment expertise that contradicts our assumptions about your career development and the financial support that you have provided during various family circumstances and professional challenges. The formal analysis that Miguel presented reflected his professional training in evidence evaluation combined with his growing awareness of the implications that my financial success had for understanding the assistance that I had provided during his legal practice difficulties and other family situations where I had offered support that appeared to represent personal sacrifice rather than routine allocation of investment returns. My parents had maintained observer status during the analytical discussion between their children, but their expressions indicated growing comprehension that Emma and Miguel were discovering information about my professional activities that suggested circumstances fundamentally different from their understanding of my career trajectory and financial situation that had guided their expressions of concern and recommendations for more traditional employment approaches. The emotional weight of witnessing their children's systematic analysis of evidence, suggesting extensive deception about my career achievements and financial success had created visible confusion and concern about the implications of such revelation for family relationships that had been built on assumptions about my economic limitations and professional struggles that were being exposed as misconceptions maintained through years of deliberate information management. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.